Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I think it's time for another one of these.
Ethan Steele. Have you ever wanted to animate yourself on camera so then you're like animated people?
Oh, I enjoyed that. That's a really good question. There's something different about it this week, but I quite like that.
Yeah. Well, it was
Can't put my
different this
finger on
week.
it though.
It was different because it was my nephew sending in this week's question. So thanks for that, Ethan. No question from Mark this week. He couldn't think of one. So cheers, Mark.
he's been replaced
He has been replaced until we decide to forgive him.
until he decides to think of a question.
But that's a
what
great question from Ethan.
It is.
Matt, you might be able to kick off on answering this one.
It is something, Ethan, honestly, it's something that I would absolutely love. And something that certainly me and James have spoken about very recently. And it's something I'm going to commit to it, we will do for this show. The only thing, to be honest, that's stopping it from being animated is just that it's quite difficult and I need to learn how to. Is the main thing. And with things like animation, I think I've mentioned before, I used to recruit for animators in the games industry, and the amount of time, like that, I think their target used to be, if you was an animator, you had a target of how many seconds you had to complete in that particular day, and it was about 2 or 3 seconds. So if you imagine if you're doing a film or you're doing a cutscene of a game, how long that would particularly do, and you're literally spending a whole day doing 2 seconds of that thing, it is huge. For our show, if our podcast is 40 minutes at a time, I can't do the maths in my head, but it's a considerable amount of days to do it. So it will happen, and I would love it. And I would love it from I think it's a dream. Imagine if, we could be in, you mentioned Wreck-It Ralph or something like that. Imagine seeing in that, like us doing it aside,
and then
imagine having the opportunity of being put into, I can think of loads of like Pixar films and that when they put a celebrity in there or put a recognised voice in there, and you think, my boys often say, oh, isn't that blah blah blah, doing that voice. The thought of having the opportunity of you being in something like that absolutely comes
true. Do you know what it makes me think of? And it's not something that I imagine Ethan will have listened to because he's quite young. But the Ricky Gervais podcast, I remember, I listened.
Weren't they?
Well, they weren't to start with, but it was another kind of avenue that they went down because there was tons of episodes, probably 3. Well, I think they'd done 3 seasons of the Ricky Gervais show, maybe 12 episodes a season. I can't remember exactly, but. And then what they'd done later down the line was made an animated version. So you had Ricky, Stephen, and Carl sitting around the table, as if like we do separately at the moment. But and then what they would do with the stories that they would talk about, they would then do a kind of animated sketch of it while they're talking about it. And I thought it worked brilliantly, and it was very basic animation. So really, Matt, the bar isn't set that high.
There's no excuse. Is what you're saying.
So if we can get this episode animated, especially for you, Ethan, Matt will do it. But yeah, I mean, that would be amazing if we could have something like that as well. But yeah, if people want to sponsor us to do this as well and send us money, that would be much appreciated. And we will definitely use it for that, not for our own game.
Or for any reason you want to send us money or anything, to be honest, like we've said before, that would be amazing too.
So yeah, we would like that to do that, Ethan. Thank you for your question. Really good.
Yeah. Amazing question.